The journey to greater glory begins with deep alignment with the will of God, because no man can truly rise beyond the level of his surrender. Alignment is not merely the act of agreeing with what God desires. It is the deliberate positioning of your entire life, your thoughts, your desires, your relationships, and your daily decisions under the influence and authority of God's voice. And a person becomes aligned with heaven's agenda. Their life becomes a conduit through which the supernatural finds expression. Glory is not random. Glory does not rest on the careless or the unfocused. Glory looks for a vessel that has been yielded, shaped, and positioned to carry the weight of divine presence. In alignment, you choose to silence the distractions around you so that the whisper of God becomes louder than the noise of your environment. Alignment demands that you trust God deeply enough to let him interrupt your plans. Many people desire greater glory, but they still cling tightly to their own ambitions, expectations, and timelines. True alignment means you are willing to say, Lord, if you change the plan, I will still follow. It means your surrender is not conditional. It means your obedience is not seasonal. When God finds a man who is willing to adjust, bend, and even break if necessary just to remain in his will, the heavens respond. That kind of heart becomes a magnet for divine possibilities. The glory of God rests on those whose yes is consistent, not convenient. To walk in greater glory, alignment must become a lifestyle, not a moment. It is easy to align during worship when the atmosphere is charged and emotions are high. But alignment becomes real when the lights are off, when temptations arise, when opportunities appear that seem beneficial but are not ordained by God. In such moments, alignment is tested. It is tested in your integrity, in your patience, and in your willingness to choose purpose over pleasure. Every decision either draws you closer to God's will or pulls you away from it. Glory increases when obedience becomes your default response to God. Deep alignment also requires intimacy. You cannot align with a God you do not. You cannot follow the will of a king whose voice you cannot discern. Through prayer, worship, study of the word, and quiet meditation, your spirit becomes trained to recognize divine instruction. Intimacy sharpens your sensitivity. It makes you aware of God's presence, his direction, and his correction. When you are aligned with him, you no longer move based on emotion. You move based on revelation. And revelation always positions you ahead of time, ahead of fear, ahead of limitation. In alignment, you stop forcing doors to open. Instead, you follow the one who holds the keys. You stop pursuing what simply looks good and begin to pursue what is God. You stop settling for average because alignment calls you to excellence. The more your life is synchronized with divine purpose, the more your path becomes saturated with grace, favor, and supernatural help. Alignment is the womb where glory is conceived. And as you align deeply with the will of God, every step you take becomes a step into a higher dimension of glory, preparing you for what awaits in 2026 and beyond. Transformation is the unavoidable passageway to greater glory, because God will never pour new wine into an old wineskin. The realms you desire, the manifestations you pray for, the influence you want to walk in, none of them can rest on the version of you that existed. Glory demands growth, and growth demands transformation. Transformation begins with the renewal of the mind, because the mind is the gatekeeper of destiny. Whatever your mind cannot conceive, your life cannot manifest. If your mind remains trapped in old patterns, fear, doubt, excuses, offense, laziness, insecurity. You will keep repeating the same cycles year after year. But have the key. But when your mind is renewed by truth, possibility, your new environment, and suddenly what was once difficult becomes natural. Transformation is not accidental. It requires intentionality. It means choosing discipline over comfort. It means refusing to let your emotions dictate your life. It means waking up every day with a commitment to become better, wiser, stronger, and more spiritually grounded than you were yesterday. Transformation demands that you confront your weaknesses, not hide them. You cannot walk in greater glory if you are still nursing habits that weaken your spirit. You cannot rise if you allow procrastination, inconsistency, or spiritual laziness to define your journey. Glory answers to responsibility. It answers to maturity. It answers to people who are willing to grow even when growth is painful. There is a version of you that heaven has ordained for 2026, but you must choose to evolve into that version. That future version of you is disciplined, focused, prayerful, and spiritually intelligent. That version of you has conquered emotional instability. That version of you has learned to say no. That version of you is not controlled by anger, lust, bitterness, or comparison. To walk in greater glory, you must allow God to work on your internal structure, your character, your motives, your attitudes, and your perception. What is weighty, and if your character is not strong enough to hold it, the same blessing meant to lift you will crush you. Transformation also requires pruning. God will cut away what does not align with your future. Sometimes he removes relationships, opportunities, behaviors, and even mindsets that used to serve you but are no longer useful. It may not feel comfortable, but pruning is proof that God is preparing you for a higher realm. When something is pruned, it is not being destroyed. It is being positioned to bear more fruit. Your willingness to let go is a sign of your readiness to go. Transformation thrives in environments of truth. Surround yourself with teachings, mentors, books, and voices that stretch your mind upward. Feed your spirit with revelation. Wise counsel accelerates growth, and exposure to higher realms ignites hunger within you. The more you grow internally, the more your external reality begins to shift. As you embrace transformation, you will notice that the old you begins to fade. Your decisions become sharper. Your spiritual senses become heightened. Your confidence becomes rooted in God, not in circumstances. Transformation makes you a vessel worthy of glory. And when you evolve into the person God has designed you to be, you will find yourself into realms that were previously inaccessible. Transformation is the bridge between who you are and the glory waiting for you in 2026. To walk in greater glory, there must be a deliberate separation from anything that weakens your spiritual intensity, distracts your focus, or dilutes your consecration. Separation is not isolation. It is the intentional distinction between what fits your destiny and what drains it. Glory carries weight, and only those who are willing to elevate their standards can sustain that weight. Separation is God's way of preparing a person for higher realms by clearing away the unnecessary noise, influences, intermixtures that compete with his voice. Many people desire the glory of God, but they are unwilling to prune their environment, their habits, or their relationships. You cannot carry greater glory while entertaining lesser distractions. Separation first happens internally. It begins when you set a standard for your mind and refuse to allow toxic thoughts, unhealthy imaginations, and internal conflicts to coexist with your pursuit of God. Your inner world must support your divine assignment. When your thoughts become pure, disciplined, and purpose-driven, your decisions naturally align with greatness. Separation means you refuse to let fear speak louder than faith. You refuse to let past failures shape your present identity, and you refuse to let your emotions sit on the throne of your destiny. The glory of God rests on those who have mastered their inner world. But separation also happens externally. To rise, you must curate your environment. You must examine who speaks into your life, who influences your decisions, and who occupies your time. Some relationships are not evil. They are simply not conducive for growth. They keep you comfortable when you need to be challenged, casual when you need to be focused, distracted when you need to be prayerful. Separation is the wisdom to discern who is assigned to your journey and who is assigned to your delay, and who is assigned to your delay. It is not pride, it is protection. Be separate from the wrong people. You create space for the right voices, the right mentors, and the right destiny helpers to emerge. Separation also demands discipline in your daily habits. Glory does not rest on a disorganized life. You cannot desire spiritual elevation while feeding yourself with content, conversations, and entertainment that weaken your spirit. To walk in greater glory, you must guard your gates, your eyes, your ears, and your heart. You must choose what enters your mind and what is allowed to shape your convictions. It's not legalism. This is not legalism. This is the understanding that your spiritual climate influences your spiritual results. There are seasons when God will call you away from the familiar, not because it is wrong, but because it is insufficient for where you are going. The higher you rise, the narrower the path becomes. Separation invites you into a deeper life of consecration, a life where your decisions are shaped not by convenience, but by purpose. It teaches you to silence distractions, avoid trivial pursuits, and invest your energy where heaven approves. And while separation may feel lonely, at times it is never fruitless. Every time God calls you apart, He is preparing you for something greater. Every distraction you overcome becomes a door you unlock. The habit you conquer becomes a dimension you enter. Separation is the womb where glory is cultured. Those who embrace it will find themselves soaring into realms where the presence, power, and wisdom of God rest upon them in ways they never imagined. No one walks into greater glory alone. It's too weighty, too intricate, too divinely orchestrated to be fulfilled in isolation. Every man or woman who rises in the kingdom does so because God strategically places the right voices, the right mentors, the right partners along the journey. Destiny partners are proof that heaven is invested in your divine connections that accelerate you, strengthen you, correct you, and position you for realms you cannot enter by yourself. To walk in greater glory, you must discern, honor, and to protect these relations, because they are not ordinary. They are prophetic pathways to your next level. There are people assigned by God to unlock new dimensions within you. Sometimes your next level is not hidden in a prayer or a prophecy. It is hidden in a person. The right relationship can expose you to opportunities, revelations, and environments that shift your entire destiny. One conversation with the right individual can open doors intelligence alone cannot open. One moment of correction from a mentor can save you years of mistakes. One encounter with a spiritual voice ordained for your life can ignite a hunger and fire you never knew you possessed. This is why discernment becomes crucial. Not every voice qualifies to guide you. Not every companionship is destiny aligned. You must recognize those God has placed in your life as carriers of wisdom and impartation. But destiny partners also require humility. But our glory cannot rest upon our hearts that refuses to listen, learn, or receive. Pride closes doors that honor would have opened. Humility positions you to receive the grace, counsel, and insight that flows from the people God has gifted you with. When you honor a destiny relationship, you tap into that divine resources connected to that person. Honor is a spiritual technology. It draws virtue. It draws impartation. It draws acceleration. Those who master the law of honor seldom walk alone. And because they do not walk alone, they do not rise slowly. At the same time, destiny partnerships are reciprocal. They demand that you also become trustworthy. You cannot attract destiny helpers while being inconsistent, irresponsible, or unreliable. Who carry greatness do not attach themselves to careless vessels. For you to walk in greater glory, you must cultivate character, loyalty, integrity, discipline, and a heart that genuinely values others. You must become the kind of person someone else's destiny can depend on. When you become safe to trust, God brings trustworthy people into your life. It is also important to understand that some relationships are for a season, while others are for a lifetime. Some people help you build foundations. Others help you build structures. Some walk with you through transformation. Others walk with you into manifestation. Do not hold on to seasonal relationships out of fear, and do not neglect lifelong connections out of carelessness. Allow God to shape your relational journey. You approach greater glory, you must guard your circle with spiritual intelligence. Those close to you influence your atmosphere. Your circle affects your focus. Your relationship impacts your prayer life, your decisions. Surround yourself with people who challenge your growth, who attain your purpose and push you toward God. Yes. You will rise into realms. You will rise into realms of glory with ease. Destiny partnerships is a heaven's gift to your journey. And as you honor, discern, and nurture them, you will find yourself stepping into levels of glory that only divine relationships could unlock. Obedience remains the master key that unlocks new realms of divine manifestation, because glory only rests where God is obeyed. Many people desire the supernatural. They pray for breakthroughs. They declare prophecies. Yet the simplest and most powerful requirement, obedience, is often the most neglected. Obedience is not merely doing what God says. It is trusting His wisdom above your logic, His timing above your impatience, and His instructions above your preferences. Everything is the seed of a higher dimension. When God speaks, He is not giving suggestions. He is opening gates. And when you obey, you walk through those gates into realms you could never access on your own. Obedience is powerful because it is the proof of surrender. Anyone can worship with words, but obedience is worship expressed through action. It is the alignment of your will with the will of God. It is your declaration that His way is better, His path is perfect, and His plans are superior to your own. And God finds a man or woman whose obedience is unquestionable. Heaven commits itself fully to their destiny. Glory does not rest on selective obedience. It rests on those who obey, whether it's convenient or inconvenient, whether it makes sense or not, whether they understand or are still learning to trust. Every time God gives an instruction, he hides a blessing within it. Noah's obedience preserved a generation. Abraham's obedience birthed a covenant. Moses' obedience parted a sea. Simple yeses change history. The pattern has never changed. Obedience precedes glory. If you want God to trust you with more, start obeying what he has already told you. Many destinies remain stagnant, not because of demonic resistance, but because of demonic resistance, delayed, partial, or silent disobedience. Heaven does not move at the level of your desire. Heaven moves at the level of your obedience. Obedience also requires sensitivity. You cannot obey a voice you cannot hear. This is why intimacy with God is critical. When your spirit is trained to recognize his guidance, whether through scripture, impressions, dreams, counsel, or conviction, obedience becomes a lifestyle instead of an event. The more sensitive you are, the quicker you obey. The quicker you obey, the faster you rise. Divine instructions often have windows of timing. What you obey may no longer carry the same power. Glory rests on prompt obedience, but obedience is not always comfortable. Sometimes God will ask you to leave environments you love, release relationships you depend on, or pursue assignments you feel unqualified for. Sometimes he will stretch your faith, challenge your assumptions, or require sacrifices that test your loyalty. Yet every act of obedience builds spiritual stature. Every time you obey, when it is difficult, your spirit grows stronger, your faith becomes deeper, and your capacity to carry glory increases. God tests obedience not to punish you, but to shape you. Obedience is also the key that unlocks divine help. When you obey God, you activate angelic movement, spiritual alignment, and supernatural assistance. Heaven bends toward the obedient, doors open, paths straighten, provision appears. The Father surrounds you. The realm of glory is governed by spiritual laws, and obedience is the chief among them. Okay, greater glory in 2026. You must commit to living a life where obedience is not optional. Let your yes be immediate. Let your yes be complete. Let your yes be consistent. For the glory that God is preparing for your next season will only rest upon those who follow his voice without hesitation. When obedience becomes your identity, glory becomes your atmosphere. Greater glory does not appear in the life of the casual, the passive, or the spiritually indifferent. It is the portion of those who pursue God with intentional hunger, sacrificial devotion, and the life anchored. In prayer, there are realms of glory that cannot be accessed by talent, gifting, or charisma. They're only open to those who have built an altar and chosen to dwell there consistently. Prayer is not merely an activity. It is a posture, a realm, a dimension where your spirit touches the heart of God and draws strength, wisdom, and power from him. Those who walk in greater glory understand that prayer is not option. Without it, their spirit suffocates, their discernment weakens, and their destiny slows down. Hunger is the fuel that sustains a life of prayer. You become desperate for God, desperate to know him, to please him, to host him. Your pursuit becomes uncommon. Hunger is the force that pushes you to pray when others sleep, to study when others call, to worship when others complain. Hunger is the difference between those who carry a spark and those who carry a flame. And God responds to hunger more than anything else. The scriptures say, He fills the hungrier with good things. The hungrier you are, the more heaven deposits into your spirit. Glory does not rest on the satisfied, it rests on the desperate. Sacrifice is another dimension of this pursuit. There are peoples sacrifice proves seriousness. It shows heaven that you value what you are asking for. Every altar in scripture required sacrifice, and every sacrifice provoked a divine response. You sacrifice your time to pray, your energy to study, your comfort to seek God. You are building a structure strong enough to host greater glory. Sacrifice is painful, but it is never empty. Fire of God always falls where sacrifice has been laid. A life of prayer shapes you into a vessel capable of carrying the weight of glory. Prayer refines your motives, purifies your heart, strengthens your spirit, and breaks limitations of your life. In prayer, you gain clarity. In prayer, you gain direction. In prayer, you gain the power to overcome what once intimidated. Prayer transforms you from the inside out, making you a carrier of God's atmosphere. Glory never rests on the prayerless, not because God is unfair, but because prayerless vessels lack the capacity to sustain what they are asking for. Greater glory also flows through consistency. Anyone can pray for a week. Anyone can be hungry for a night. But those who rise in the spirit remain consistent even when they feel nothing, see nothing, or understand nothing. Consistency is proof of maturity. It proves that your pursuit is not based on emotion, but on conviction. When you pray consistently, you build spiritual stature. You accumulate strength. You sharpen your discernment. With each day of devotion, you rise higher in the spirit, often without realizing it, until one day heaven announces you. A life of prayer also positions you for encounters. Encounters change men. Encounters open realms. Encounters mark you with dimensions, glory that cannot be taught or transferred through ordinary means. Prayer is the gate to encounters, and encounters are the gate to greater glory. As you embrace hunger, sacrifice, and prayer, you will notice your atmosphere begin to shift. You will feel the presence of God resting upon you in new ways. You will speak and things will move. You will pray and answers will come. You will worship and realms will open. Greater glory responds to those who pursue God beyond convenience, those who dare to seek Him until they become carriers of His essence. To walk in greater glory in 2026, you must embrace the process, endure the refining, and anchor your life in unwavering faith. Glory is not an event, it is the product of a journey shaped by God's wisdom, timing, and dealings. Many people admire the manifestation of glory, but resist the path required to carry it. Yet the process is God's training ground, where He molds your character, stretches your capacity, pure motives, and prepares you to host dimensions of His presence you have never experienced before. If glory is the destination, then process is the road, and no one bypasses the road and arrives whole. The process is often uncomfortable because God uses it to confront the parts of your life that are not yet aligned with your destiny. It is in the process that you learn discipline, humility, patience, and resilience. It's in the process that God exposes the weaknesses that darkness can exploit and strengthens you until those weaknesses become testimonies, Every great man in scripture endured a process. Joseph endured betrayal. Moses endured isolation. David endured obscurity. And even Jesus endured that prepare you in public. He prepares you in hidden places. And when you embrace the hidden season, you are becoming qualified for the glory ahead. Endurance is crucial because the journey is rarely linear. It will be moments when nothing seems to move, when prayers feel silent, when promises look distant, and when your faith is tested beyond what you thought you could bear. These moments are not signs of abandonment, they are signs of preparation. Endurance builds stamina in your spirit. It teaches you to stand even when you do not understand. It teaches you to worship even when you feel pressure. It teaches you to trust even when nothing around you suggests progress. Weight of glory you desire requires a weight of endurance to sustain it. The refining of God is not punishment. It is purification. When fire refines gold, it does not destroy the gold. It removes what is unworthy of it. Likewise, when God allows the fires of life to touch you, He is burning away the fears, dependencies, and limitations that would sabotage your future. Refining seasons sharpen your discernment, deepen your compassion, strengthen your wisdom, and elevate your spiritual authority. The glory awaiting you in 2026 will require a refined version, one who has been tested, proven, and strengthened by God's hand. But above all, unwavering faith is the anchor that carries you through the process. Faith is the ability to see beyond what your eyes reveal. Faith is the conviction that God's word is superior to your circumstances. Faith is choosing to believe even when doubt whispers loudly. Glory responds to faith because faith honors God. When you walk in unwavering faith, you become unshakable. You stop measuring God by your feelings and start measuring God by God's promises. No longer live by what you see, but by what you know. Unwavering faith protects you from discouragement. It lifts your eyes above the storm and keeps your spirit fixed on the one who never fails. Glory rests on those who refuse to give up, who refuse to let life silence their belief. Faith turns valleys into testimonies, delays into preparation, and impossibilities into divine encounters as you embrace process, endure, refining, and walking unwavering for your next season. What is coming in 2026 is not for the faint-hearted, but for the prepared. And when the fullness of God's glory finds you ready, your life will become a living proof that the God who rewards